Thanks for tuning in, guys. You're listening to Ace Comicals. I'm Greg Driver. I'm joined by Rahul Jani and Leon Everett. Let's go! Hello, everybody, and welcome to Ace Comicals episode number 66. And today I have both my co-hosts with me again. So we have Leon and Ray.
Hey guys.
Hey dudes.
I think it's going to be one of them weeks where we don't have an awful lot to mention, but it's going to turn into a long cast anyway. I don't know.
Story of our lives, right?
I've got a few things to talk about. I don't know about you, Ray. Have you got?
Yeah, I got a couple of comics that I've read. One that I genuinely enjoyed, and one that I read because you read it, and I'm not sure how I feel about it. So we can dive into that.
Oh dear, right. So I mean, before we start, what have you guys been up to in the interim? Because we had the episode 64, and then I did an interview by myself with the wonderful Ben Kahn, and now we are back. So, what have you guys been up to in the interim?
Listening to your interview with Ben, which was fantastic. Thought you did a really good job, and Ben was a wonderful guest. And went and actually read all of their comics, and I really, really enjoyed Griffin. It's a really good comic, and I implore everyone to go out and read it. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. It is such great fun, that book, and I had a blast talking about it. It was great. I mean, in between times, between this and the last regular show, Vertigo Comics has closed down. Like, well, it's not gone yet, but DC have made plans to sunset it, and obviously you can't see what I'm doing, but I'm making the little inverted air commas. Which basically means they're going to take it out back and put a bullet in its head in the shed. So, DC have revealed their plans to rebrand everything, and they've taken Vertigo Comic. They're getting rid of Vertigo, which I'm quite sad about, because Vertigo, you know, I think the indie comic scene that we have today owes a lot to Vertigo, and I talk about this a lot on the interview. Me and Ben have a discussion about this, and yeah, I think that indie creators today and the indie comic scene, as in, like, you know, the indie releases and things like that, and a lot of these other smaller labels, this is Vertigo's legacy now. Like, some of these comics that we're getting and reading and that we're enjoying, and I'm sad to see it go as the beginning of what is now, you know, so great, like this freedom of expression that you have and everything, and the ability to be able to tell these stories and things outside of normal comic book fare sort of have their roots in Vertigo, I guess. I mean, would you agree with that, Leon?
Yeah, I would. Like, for me, Vertigo is like just inseparable from my journey with comics. When I started to read in my later teens, and would just discover things, whether in my library or whether hearing other people discuss them online. These books that sounded so cool, they were doing a lot of things different. At that point, I was like, superheroes. I want something edgy and adult. And what I got was things that were edgy and adult, but they also were more mature exploration of a lot of things, and they were closer to what I thought of as like serious, like novels, like literature, and that's for me where, like, I had that silly distinction where it's like, I read graphic novels. These are graphic novels, and the thing is, a lot of them were actual graphic novels
with your big leather coat and your shades.
Yeah. I don't know what my version of edgy was, to be honest, but I think it was edgy inside, and then as soon as I walked out the house, I was a filthy nerd again. But yeah, there was a lot of I don't know. It was like it was like coming of age in a way, reading a lot of these books. And I remember in my library just picking up things like 100 Bullets, or like Why the Last Man, or Sandman, and just having my mind blown away. And it was like at the right time, the right type of books, and it helped me look further back at what was going on in that space, but also like look forward and like follow a lot of these spin-offs, or follow a lot of these creators, like Brian K. Vaughan being one, who I followed since from project to project as he moved to, and as other writers and artists have moved to creator-owned properties, or had runs at like the big two. It was like really, it was like fertile ground creativity-wise, and I think like a lot of my favorite comics come from that imprint, and come from the Karen Berger's tenure. Just ushering in this age of comics, like in the greatest sense, because we all knew, but in the greatest sense of being like, comics aren't just these kiddie books, but comics are literature, and they're as complex and as serious, as meaty as like 1,000 word like novels. And I think that the impact of Vertigo can't be minimized in any way. You can just feel that. I mean, comics now, like 90% of what we talk about on this show has its roots coming from either Vertigo or what Vertigo did for the culture back then and onwards. And it's weird because there was a period, even as recent as been doing the podcast, where I was like, man, I've been reading a lot of Image books and like Boom and Dark Horse, but like, where the hell? I was like, Vertigo was my bread and butter. But then you look back. I was looking back the last couple of years, and that's when I read like Sheriff of Babylon, which is a Vertigo book, and it's like, oh, they're still going strong. It's just like now they're not one of the few like lamps in the light. They're not like the soul bell tolling that you're just reaching out for. Now there's because of them and other people who are working around at that time. There's loads of these opportunities now, and loads of these really interesting titles coming out. But they were still doing good work.
Yeah, this is what I've been trying to express, that Vertigo were the sledgehammer that broke the dam. And
that sounds like an inefficient way to break a dam. But
yeah. But now it's, like you were just saying, there's so much out there that owes so much to Vertigo. Like, if Vertigo is the tree trunk, everything else is the branches and the leaves, and like all these other labels, other comic publishers that are doing, that are giving space for these indie creators to do what they're doing and create their own stuff and whatever. And I mean, you can't talk about Vertigo without talking about Karen Berger and Berger Books, because I think Berger Books embodies the spirit of Vertigo. I'd like to think that is where the soul of Vertigo now is. I mean, as much as there's a piece of it everywhere else, I'd like to think it's there as well. We're not totally losing Vertigo, but we are losing Vertigo in a sense, because now everything is being brought under one label, and I get the impression that anything that would normally have been published with a Vertigo logo on it is now going to be DC Black Label, barrel aged for so many years or whatever for the mature palette. I don't know how they describe it, but when I say DC Black Label, I instantly think of whiskey. I just don't. I mean, don't know
it's hard not to.
Yeah. And I mean, I get what they're trying to do with centralizing it all and everything, but I do think it's a little bit unnecessary. I can't help but think that what they're doing is slightly unnecessary, and they could have just let Vertigo be and carry on and just published everything they're publishing on DC Black Label through Vertigo. I mean, do you not feel that they're just like attempting to fix something that doesn't need to be fixed? A little bit. Do you not feel like that, Leon?
I mean, I can't really speak for like the business machinations or like the you know, those kind of justifications, but what I will say is like not having, like you're saying, putting all these things under one label, under one roof, it kind of makes it harder for, I don't know, maybe people like me who I take the name Vertigo as a mark of quality, or like a mark of the kind of stories that I want to engage with. So like, for example, under Vertigo, I found, like you said, I found Sandman and I found Why the Last Man, and those informed my tastes, it informed what I wanted from comics, and I would return to Vertigo for that same type of thing. And I think maybe it's going to be harder to know where to turn now when that name isn't there.
Well, it's just DC Black Label, you know.
But yeah, if it's all under that umbrella, then like, it I don't know, in my heart, it means something different. I'm going to have to like relearn what that name expresses and what that represents.
Yeah, and there's something actually that I wanted to mention that I saw written in a tweet. And it's something that you often as a comics fan have to remind people of, and that you think about a lot yourselves, and that is that comics are a medium and not a genre. And I think Vertigo embodied that, and Vertigo taught the world that, or tried to teach the world that, and that is why we now have the stories we have and the comics we enjoy, and a lot of what we talk about on this podcast, as Leon mentioned. There you go. Comics are a medium and not a genre. I quite like that, actually. I wish I could remember. I mean, I retweeted it when I saw it and everything, and I wish I could tell you, like, or find it in my timeline for where that came from, but yeah, I think it's great.
Yeah, it's definitely a thing that has to be sort of put out there again every now and again, because you get it a lot with like animation, anime, and other things like that, where people have slightly less of an understanding of how these things work, and it's a few lightning poles that they lightning rods that they engage with every now and again, but they don't really delve in. And it's like there was another tweet that I just can't remember, but I'll find it and we can put it in the show notes, where someone made a really good point that Vertigo isn't dead. Like Vertigo as an imprint is gone, but Vertigo lives on with people like Berger and the other like editors and VPs who are working at Vertigo during its time. They've gone on to other places and set up imprints, and they're giving us that sweet content that carries on the DNA of that, and a lot of the like creators and like writers, artists, colorists, inkers, cover artists, letterers, all those people who had such an impact on some of these seminal titles, but have also been working there in the later years as well. They've all gone to other stuff, and some of these people are going to get like brand new runs on Black Label. Some of these people are at like Burger Books and the other imprints that are out there. So it's like it's sad in that case, but in terms of like the art itself, like as like that the whole thing, I think like that stuff lives on, and we're still going to feel the impact, and we're still going to get these really interesting, thought-provoking, like transcendent stories. So I feel good in that sense. It's sad to say goodbye to something that was really instrumental in my love of comics.
It's a symbolic goodbye. You're saying goodbye to a logo, but the spirit lives on. I'm just not looking forward to see shelves full of Preacher books with Black Label logos on them instead when they start.
Get them now. Enjoy that glorious Vertigo logo.
Yeah. Buy it while it's still there. So, I mean, on from there, I guess, because, I mean, I don't know, is this going to be DC Black Label or what? I get confused now, but Batman Curse of the White Knight's coming back in July. I read a preview of it in one of the comics on my list of comics to talk about today, which is Detective Comics 1006. I just felt Leon just like crumble under that when I said 1006.
No, just restarts in my head. 1000 is issue 0, and they've just started again. The timer has stopped.
Yeah. Well, yeah, so Batman White Knight is coming back, and we've got Batman Curse of the White Knight, which is like a sequel to White Knight, which we talked about on this cast and discussed at great length. If you want to go back a few eps and check that out, please do. I think the book's out collected now, so you should like 100% check that out because it's fantastic. So I'll just read off the official DC website. So, following the critical success of Batman White Knight, Murphy is putting a new spin on this upcoming series, with the Joker recruiting a new savage partner to help him expose a shocking revelation about the Wayne family's legacy. As Batman rushes to protect the city and his loved ones from this corrupt conspiracy, the Dark Knight will come face to face with the horrifying truth. In some of the promo art I've seen, you've got Azrael in the promo art, so I'm quite looking forward to seeing some Flame Sword. You've got I mean, I read the preview in the back of the book, and it's already great. It's like, you know, classic open with the Joker escaping Arkham, but the way it's done is fantastic, and like the conspiracy at hand is also fantastic. If it's what I think it is, which I'm not going to spoil, go out and check out the preview if you can find it. Check out the preview pages on the DC website. It's out there, so yeah, give it a look and get hype for next month when this drops. So I think we're going to be seeing this in July, which is only like a day away because tomorrow's July 1st as we're recording this. This episode will actually be out on the 3rd of July. And this debuts on the 24th of July, so it's on my list. I'm looking forward to that. Leon, did you finish reading the original White Knight story?
No, I had like 1 or 2 issues to go.
You should get back in and read it, because the way it ends is great, and I could have just left it there. I didn't need a sequel, but now I've seen and read the preview for this, I need the sequel. So yeah, it's going to be good. It's going to be fun. Interesting as well, because I think the when we've discussed the previous White Knight arc, we thought it was actually quite a nice breakdown of the relationship between the Joker and Batman, didn't we? We quite enjoyed that, the way that it played with that a little bit, and
it was
it's a good subversion of what we've seen previously in Batman comics and stuff, and that was like fresh for people like me, at least anyway, that have read like a ton of Batman books. And it was just a fresh take on everything, and I quite enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to more of the same. Moving on from there, shall we just dive right into our list of books for today? So we shall start with, I think we'll open with Marilyn Manor. So this is one that I read, and this is Marilyn Manor number 1. This is by Magdalene Visaggio, so this is like her latest. And the best way for me to describe this is like a rager in the White House. What could go wrong? That's like the best way that I can put what's going on here. It's an early 80s MTV video diary of mayhem. It's just nuts. I'm going to read the blurb. The blurb goes, "Where were you in 81 when the White House goes dark for 17 days in August? The president's spoiled daughter and her best friend Abe, who claims to be possessed by the spirit of Abe Lincoln, throw a rager at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, unearthing long-dead historical figures and government secrets that are better off buried. Sex, drugs, rock and roll, seances, and secret passageways lead to time-bending mystical romps where past and present collide. But at what cost to Marilyn Keller, the world at large, and music television?" It's basically that, and it's basically what I've already described. Now, I read this. I had to read through this twice, because on my first reading, I think I got a little bit disheartened at the fact that, like, they dropped a geographical clangor, and it just felt like it just felt lazy a little bit, I guess, in the way that they did this. And I think have I mentioned this before on the cast, how sometimes, like, it's something that me and Sophie often get into discussions about. It's about the way that American writers and Western writers, when they write films and stuff like that, are lazy about Eastern Europe.
Yeah, you have brought it up, and like you mentioned it in the context of Chernobyl as well, I think. Yeah,
and in the way that they just band around the word Budapest in the Avengers films, like, you know, something shady happened in Eastern Europe. You know, it just feels a bit lazy. Well, in this, they're a little bit lazy with that, because there's a line where they mention a DJ is from the East German-Hungarian border. Well, Germany and Hungary don't share a border. There's like 2 countries between Germany and Hungary, and there always kind of has been. I don't think there's ever been. I mean, even in that back then, I don't think there was a border between East Germany and Hungary. Like, I looked it up and everything, and I don't think there was. So it's just
that's a great one.
Yeah, and it's just like you could have, you know, that just feels under researched to me, and that kind of like disheartened me a little bit while I was reading it. But I went back and had a second look, and I could look past that, and beyond that, it's a really, really fun comic, actually. A really cool, fun story. It's masses of fun. It's like a comic book Cyndi Lauper music video if Cyndi did a track with the Beastie Boys. It's a rager in the White House. The art is nice and minimal. It's conservative with its detail. It's clean, and it works well for the aesthetic of the time and the story that it's trying to do. So, like, it looks very 80s, as in, not like an 80s comic book, but it just screams 80s at you. Like, when you look at the way that the art is done and the way it's coloured with these, like, flat colours and neon and, like, everything, you know, everything just pops off the page and it's just in your face.
You mean, like, also in the fashion and the way that the world itself looks, in context? Yeah,
in the character designs. I mean, Marilyn herself is practically Cyndi Lauper when you look at the character designs.
Yeah. I'm looking at the cover, and yeah, definitely. With the eye makeup and the like geometric earrings and stuff. Yeah.
And it's great. It's great. It's a great story, and I just love the idea of this, like, 80s rager in the White House. And it just, like, brings back, I mean, like, I know Saved by the Bell's the 90s, but I couldn't help, like, because there's this there's a Facebook page I follow and a YouTube channel that I watch called Zach Morris's Trash.
That's a fantastic channel. It's so good.
It basically does breakdowns of Saved by the Bell episodes and tells you why Zach Morris is a shitty person. And I love it. It's great. It's fantastic. But this kind of, like, I couldn't help reading through it. Like, I was reading through it, and, like, I felt like if it was set maybe a decade later, it could be a Saved by the Bell like, plot or something like that. I don't know. Like, I could just see Zach Morris in there. Like, let's throw a huge party somewhere where we shouldn't throw a huge party, you know. But yeah, it's great, and it's just so fun and full of mayhem. And there's these lovely curved edge panels on the pages, and it gives you the impression that you're watching it all on an old TV set, which adds to the mood and gives you the MTV vibe and whatever, and like some kind of video diary thing on an old video camcorder. Yeah, it's just brilliant. And, like, right away, the cold open is, like, Marilyn has just finished dyeing her hair and is, like, walking out to the throngs of people, like, her party. Like, her bathroom is a mess. Like, initially, when you first look at that page, until you realise what's going on, like, for a split second, I don't know if this is conditioning from the fact that, like, I'm used to seeing stuff like this in comics, but I thought it was blood. And then, like, she walks out into the party and I'm like, that's red hair dye. But yeah, it's, yeah, I don't know if that's intentional or not, but I thought that was kind of cool, the way that hit me. Maybe I was expecting it to be something, I don't know, but it was just great. And, yeah, it's excessive. There's excess. It's brilliant. everything you love about MTV and, you know, all that stuff. It's great. And I would recommend that. I'd recommend you check that out. Just, yeah, I mean, the only problem I had with it was that one geographical clanger, because kind of, you know, yeah, we need to fix this the way that they, like, do Eastern Europe in Western stories, because, yeah, but yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I can see how that would have put a dampener on it for you, but good on you for, like, going back and giving it a second chance.
Yeah. I guess we should move on to the next one on the list. Now, should we go for the one that we both read, Ray?
We can do. I don't have loads to say on it, but I want to hear what your thoughts are as the veteran of both of these properties.
I want to know why you're not into it.
I didn't say I wasn't into it. It was fun. Like, look, go on, go in, dive in.
Yeah. Okay. So, in case you haven't guessed, in fact, you know what? I'll give you. In fact, we'll let Leon. Oh, so Leon. Without looking at the run sheet, I want you to guess what two properties are involved in this next comic, based on me.
Based on you. Turtles.
Ooh.
Is that the one that's out? Ghostbusters, definitely.
Yeah.
And if it's not Turtles, it has to be Transformers.
You got it. So it's Ghostbusters and Transformers, and this was really cool. Obviously, duh. Like, I will not hear anything else said about this at all. It was cool, and that is the gospel word. It is a celebration of 35 years of both franchises, and it's possibly something that had been happening in my toy box as a kid anyway. And now it's in front of me in comic form. I like to think that when I closed my eyes and went to sleep, this story was playing out under my bed. I don't know. But it's wonderful. And so far as I can gather, in this universe, so basically it's a crossover of Transformers and Ghostbusters, and it's just a fun celebration for 35 years of both franchises, which is obviously happening this year. And it's just a great way to do it, and I really love the idea and the premise of this. So the premise of this is that, I mean, we already know from the previous Ghostbusters comics and things that I've discussed on here already, we have an established multiverse. And in this universe, with this version of the Transformers, this is like the Prime Ghostbusters universe. So in the Prime Ghostbusters universe, the version of the Transformers in this universe, the Autobots have fled Cybertron, because there's a war going on Cybertron as usual. But before the Decepticons could follow, Gozer descends and destroys the planet. And we have Cybertronian Gozer. And I think I've talked about the preview art for this as well, on a previous episode with Leon. I think it was just me and Leon, and I was talking about this and Usagi and everything else that I love. But because I was like stoked for this, and the preview art shows you Robo Gozer, like Gozertron or whatever you want to call it. Yeah. And the two Terror Dogs as well, and they're all like Cybertronianized, and it's like fantastic designs. And yeah, Gozer destroys the planet, and it plays out. I love the way they did this. It plays out in much the same way that it does in the first Ghostbusters movie when they meet Gozer, and Ray basically brings the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man down on everyone.
Yeah, by like accidentally thinking about something in his head without wanting to.
But this time, yeah. Oh, go on.
No,
sorry.
Go on, carry on.
Yeah, this time it's Starscream, Soundwave, Shockwave, and Megatron, and it's Starscream's fault. And Starscream imagines himself as a giant king of Cybertron wearing a crown, a la the Transformers movie from the 80s, the animated one, where Starscream's coronation, and then call this a coronation, Starscream, more like bad comedy. He gets turned to dust by Galvatron, but that's a story for another day.
Can I just say, this is exactly why I wanted to read this and then talk to you about it, because just hearing you explain like the context of this makes it so much better. Yeah, because I liked this scene to begin with, but knowing that it's like, because I was going to ask you the question, who is this meant to represent? And the fact that you say it's Starscream himself is hilarious.
It's so good. It's King Starscream from the bit in, and then obviously Starscream comes back later on as a ghost in the cartoon series. and lo and behold, Starscream's ghost is on Earth, which is kind of cool. So they kept, but yeah, so Cybertron gets wrecked by this huge Starscream. And the Autobots are just out there adrift.
Wait, because again, one of my favorite moments, like very early on in this, is like, so Starscream has thought of the thing that will be, because how does Gozer put it, like
chosen the form of the Traveler.
Yeah, chosen your demise in the form that you choose, and he thinks of like this giant version of himself wearing like the decapitated heads of his cohorts around his neck, and then
along with the Matrix of Leadership.
Exactly, yeah, and then they're screaming like Cybertron must be preserved, and then the next page is just a black screen, a black page saying Cybertron was destroyed.
Yeah,
so like the timing of some of this is really comic. It's really
Megatron
good.
Shouting Cybertron must be preserved, and that's it's fantastic. So after that, we snap to a bunch of Autobots on the Autobot ship Ark, and they are like just drifting out in the universe. They know Cybertron's gone. They know they're probably all that's left. And they pick up a Cybertronian signal from where else? Earth. And Prime decides to send a landing party of one, who is none other than Ectotron, who is he's a transformer that looks like a Ghostbuster that transforms into the Ecto-1. How awesome and radical is that, right? So pretty sure
I would have said hilariously shoehorned, but it's a net positive. So yeah.
Pretty sure I drew this as a child, but so he they send Ectotron to investigate this signal. Q, our boys in grey, clean up a spectral disturbance in town, and bam, that's where it all meets. And I'm not going to say any more than that because you need to go and read it and enjoy it because it's fantastic. The art, as always, is awesome in these books. Like, I love the way Schoening draws these characters, and especially the way he's captured the likeness of the G1 designs of the Transformers. Like, he's taken them from the animation and the toys, and it's to die for. Like, literally, it's like so good the way he's done it. And he just has a way with this. Like, the way he manages to like present these characters in such a way, they just look so great. And Ectotron fits right in as a newly designed Transformer, original for the book, and like the way Ectotron's design fits in, and the way Ectotron doesn't look new compared to the others. He just fits like in with the rest of them, and it looks great, like he's always been there. And just I bang on and on and on about this creative team, but like we have so if I read out the full credits, so it's Dan Schoening on art duties. Eric Burnham is the writer. Colours by Luis Antonio Delgado and letters by Tom B. Long. But like Luis's colours as well. Like the way that it just looks like I'm looking at the animation, like the way that he's coloured them, and the way that this all kind of like comes together, and even with the line work and everything, like Megatron's face and everything. It's just the likeness is perfect. It's exactly just ripped right out of my childhood. Like, you could have had this on a VHS. That's how it looks to me. And Eric Burnham's writing, like as you mentioned before, like some of the comic timing in here is absolutely perfect. Like he, time and time again, he nails it spot on. And if you enjoy this, Ray, I'd recommend going back and visiting some of the other Ghostbusters books that Burnham's wrote, because like he just nails it time and time again. Like, honestly.
Yeah, I think I might, because like this is a really good appetizer for that work. I think because I hadn't really made an effort to dive into any of the Ghostbusters stuff, but I really like the character design. I like how kind of goofy it all looks, and it's clearly being quite playful. And, I dig it.
It just like embodies the spirit of Ghostbusters, embodies the spirit of the property almost perfectly. Like the way that Eric Burnham writes these characters and the way that Dan Schoening draws this stuff, it's just spot on every time. No complaints from me at all. Ever. And I think you should all pick this up. And it has interconnecting covers as well. When you get the whole run, all the covers are going to join up to make one big panorama.
Oh, I see. Yeah, cool.
So yeah, that was my first one. That's Transformers Ghostbusters #1. And that is on stands available now. I should also probably run through the credits for Marilyn Manor, because I neglected to do so, and I apologise. So that is written by Magdalene Visaggio, art and cover by Marley Zarcone, cover colour by Tamara Bonnevillain, and the actual main book is coloured by Irma Kinvilla, lettered by Jane Hare. I thought that was like just a cool, just like in your face bit of fun. And then obviously I had Ghostbusters as well, because I think I needed a pick me up this week, and I think those two kind of did it for me. They kind of like pulled me up by the scruff of my neck and like booted me and said, just get on with it, which was great. I just wanted to mention as well, like, other than these, there was nothing new I was really massively stoked about over the past 2 weeks. I've revisited Weapon X in the wake of Wolverine Exit Wounds. So there was a book that came out, which was Wolverine Exit Wounds, which was part of the Marvel 80th celebrations. It was an anthology of 3 new Wolverine tales. And although it was fun, I just found it a little lacking. And it prompted me to go back and reread Weapon X again, because that's my favourite Wolverine comic. And largely because the first tale in this anthology takes place during Wolverine Weapon X. And I expected more from the list of names that we've got associated with it, but I think I was just... I think the rose-tinted glasses, maybe. Because when I picked it up and read it, I was a little bit... I felt let down by it. Like, it could have been so much better than it was. A little bit lackluster. I mean, I didn't hate it, but I wasn't like... I was just like, meh, Wolverine comic.
What was it that is specifically that sort of pushed you away? Stopped you falling in love?
I think it was the writing was a little bit lackluster in places. It didn't feel... It felt like these people have done better and could do better and were possibly phoning it in a little bit. I mean, you've got names like Chris Claremont associated with this. And Larry Hama. And I just felt like they could have tried. I felt like they could have done better. I think maybe I was expecting too much because I saw the names associated with it. I don't know. But that's my take on it anyway. And I went back and read Weapon X instead. So Weapon X is read Weapon X, but read Wolverine Exit Wounds as well. Go, by all means, go check it out. Just don't go in with high expectations, because you'll end up like me. But yeah, it was good. It was fun, but it was a little lacking. Leon, do you want to pick up one from your list next?
Yeah, I'll speak about a comic it's a graphic novel, and this is 2019 Leon speaking, so it actually is a graphic novel, and it isn't just like a comic not about superheroes. So it is not about superheroes. So this is a comic called Waves that came out on Boom Studios, and it's written by Ingrid Scheber, art by Caro Morel. I'm always terrible at names. It's translated by Edward Garvin and lettered by Daron Bennett. And I'll read the blurb that they have on Boom Studios, where, I mean, I went into this roughly with no information, but I'll read the blurb that they put in, which is, after years of difficulty trying to have children, a young woman and her wife announced their pregnancy, only to have the most joyous period of their lives become one of unexpected heartbreak. While drowning in an ocean of sorrow following their loss, the young couple begin a journey of renewal and hope as they learn to live and love again. So, I mean, off the bat, probably thinking, oh man, that sounds like a downer. And in some ways, it is, but a lot of the stuff that's in that blurb is right at the beginning. And I think what the book does well is really put you with these characters as they go on this journey, and like sort of connected to what I was saying earlier, because this is a story that isn't about science fiction and isn't about some sort of fantastical element, and is more just a series of like scenes and sequences where you're spending time with people over this extended period of time, and then you have some like poetic sort of dream sequences interspersed. What it does really well with the art and the visual storytelling is really, it really engages you. Like, the panel gets this subject matter, or say that each page gets this subject matter and just transforms it into something really evocative and like haunting. And like, while the subject matter at times is like melancholic and possibly sad, or it's not misery porn, if you know what I mean. It doesn't feel like this overbearing like feeling, considering the subject matter. Instead, it feels very honest and very like real. You can tell, and I did a bit of research on this, that some of the story is like not fully autobiographical, but like pulls on experiences from the writer, and you can really feel it because it's not focused on really the doom. It focuses on these characters like working together and being each other's like rock through like a terrible time, and like having to rebuild and like look forward and make plans. And it's like, as it's like elements of it are like a relationship story as well. It really captures the bonds that you get, and like what it's like to be like in a team, to be like two people sort of against the world, sort of making having to make lemonade, basically. And yeah, it was really, I found it to be really effective, and highly recommend it, because it just does things with like the panel structure and layout, where sometimes there are no hard lines on the panels. Instead, the edges blur into the gutters, and when there are lines, they are like more freehand and not like ruled or like digitally straight. And it's really good that it like the color and like the line work. It's that style where it's you get some like bleed of like coloring, where like say like the background and the characters, like it will bleed sometimes, and you get sort of like looser lines that don't fully connect, and it's like has a more sort of sketchy feel of like digital like brushwork. The way the color is done, it's like color, like blocks of color rather than things outlined. And yeah, I think it's really good at like pulling you in that way. And I feel the line work that is there gives, it's almost like, it's weird to say because of how the art style is, but almost like a tactile quality, the way like shadow is used in the coloring, and it does like a really cool thing where like sets of pages or a page that are set in like one location or during one specific scene, they are like, there is a sort of color matching being used that it's so effective. Like, okay, we're in this place now, and that the color palettes just complement each other so well that you just really, you have a real sense of location and place, and you don't need to have anything of like saying their apartment, the hospital, blah blah blah, in the car, anything like that, because the way the way the like visual language works is that it just pulls you in straight away, and it looks really good. Like a lot of the pages are the type where it would preview really well because you just show a couple of panels and some of the splash pages, and it looks really nice. Where if you remove like the text box or something, it'd be a really good like background. I know that's weird to say about a comic book that is about like a miscarriage and stuff, but it's just really nice to look at, and it's like a confident reliance on like dialogue-free sequential panels to convey not just information but feelings. And like what we've spoken about in the past, when we really like comics that really play with the sort of panel time structure, where each panel is like a snippet in time, sped up or slowed down to what fits what's happening at that particular time. And different comics do like every comic does it, but different comics use it more effectively than others in certain situations. And I think this is a big one where it's so confident and so it has such purpose doing this, that it just reads so much cleaner as you're going page to page, and you're like being pulled through this story, and like you really get to see the internal sort of struggle that the lead character is playing, and part of that is because we have these like nightmare dream sequences, but also they're really good at like this, like you'll have a panel of the character and the focus, the facial expression, what's laid out in the scene in the panel, you just sort of can pull that all in, even if you've not had an experience anything like the ones that are displayed. So I think it's really effective. I really enjoyed it, and I'm happy I just went in near sight unseen and just went off what I'd heard like semi good things. Well, I'd heard good things, but I didn't read that much into them. I thought, yeah, okay, whatever. Let me check that out, and it really paid off. And I think that all the different like art and writing techniques, all of those serve the main purpose, which is making us feel like we are with these characters through their journey. And yeah, I'd recommend it. It's not that long. It's about 96 pages all in, and it's it's really nice to get something that feels quite complete, but isn't and it doesn't have any like deeper mythology. Instead, you're just hanging out with characters.
Yeah, man, that sounds nice.
Yeah, this is something I've actually had my eye on for a while, because I've been following all the Boom stuff, because I quite like this particular kind of thing. Like looking through the artwork while you were talking, Leon, I realized that I've read something that, not by the same writer, but by the same artist, Carol Morel, something that came out last year called Louisa Now and Then, about this young girl who's an aspiring photographer, and it's a story about her finding herself and finding her sexuality. And like the artwork, I think in that is very similar to what you expressed about like how there's no hard edges. Like a lot of it, to me, the way I would describe it is like, and looking at Waves versus Louisa, I feel like they're very similar art styles. So I'm not just pulling that out of nowhere. It's it feels like painted on rice paper, and like it's almost like watercolor on rice paper, where like all the splotches of different colors lay into each other and don't like contrast each other that much. And like there's a, like you were saying, like almost a homogenized color palette per scene, where there's like 5 or 6 main colors that get used over and over again, even though like in reality it probably wouldn't be that way, but it really gives a sense of place. Like I think I assume that's the same with Waves, and I really liked Louisa, and I really like Carol Morel's artwork, so I'm going to be reading Waves next, I think, based on that.
Yeah, definitely. Like what you said does ring true for Waves. Morel's art and colouring, like what you say about the writer, but it does feel like certain panels that like ink is dried. I know it's digital, but it's like ink is dried at like different degrees, or that the paper has absorbed different bits of different colours to a different degree, and it has, like I was saying, texture a lot. Like it has that like texture like popping off the page.
Yeah, it has like an organic quality which you don't expect from digital artwork, I guess.
That's something
Cool.
that I definitely need to add to my list and check out, because hearing you two talk about it, it sounds great, and it sounds like it's like really considered and just beautifully put together. So it just sounds like something I want to check out.
Yeah, and I'd just reiterate: don't be put off by the story. I mean, everyone's mileage varies, and obviously, if there's any part of that story which seems like triggering or anything like that, then of course. But if that's not the case, don't let the sort of starting theme put you off, because as I've been trying to convey, I think that what the writing and art do together is tell a story where these characters are not defined by their tragedy, but it handles it in quite a mature and delicate and honest way.
Yeah, it sounds like a very sensitive portrayal of something that happens often in real life and doesn't often get talked about, I guess.
Ray, batter up.
Yeah, so following on from that, I'm reading something, or I read something that was, I guess, similarly avant-garde. I don't know how I would describe this, but basically I picked up Clue Candlestick, so it's an issue 1 by IDW, following on from the same Clue as in Cluedo comics that I talked about, I think, last year. Because there was a 6-issue run where it was the same thing, the board game Cluedo, or the board game Clue in America, and using the characters and location from the board game to write a story around. And this one is entirely written by one person, Dash Shaw, so Story Art Letters by Dash Shaw, also published by IDW. And I up front, I really like this. I think I like this better than the one that came out last year or 2 years ago, whatever it was. Basically, it starts off with Professor Plum receiving a coded letter from Mr. Body. So it's all the same characters that were existing in the previous one and from the film and from the board game. The letter from Mr. Body states that he fears for his life, and because of this, he wants to settle the precious items in his estate. And his estate also happens to be plagued by thunderstorms, he says almost incidentally in this letter. And the items in his estate that he wants to settle and wants Professor Plum to be present for, just so happen to be the iconic weapons from the board game. And each item is given its own like really grisly backstory to justify their worth. All presented in this really like cool 50s checkerboard coloured background style. Like really stark and flat imagery on this like really stark and flat background. Anyway, so Plum attends a dinner at Mr. Body's house where all the usual suspects are also in attendance. And we get to see like snippets of Plum's Sherlock/detective vision as he's sat at this dinner table surrounded by people whose intents are never quite clearly known. And so there's a moment where Colonel Mustard is pontificating on the nature of inanimate objects and them having baked-in motivations, and he starts an argument with the other guests who point out like the ridiculousness of his example of a plate having the desire to control what is and isn't served on it. And at that moment, he spots the famous candlestick, like the candlestick from the game, one of the items that Mr. Body wants to pass on to his friends before his his death that he seems to have foretold. And Colonel Mustard like stands up from the dinner table and shouts that it like this candlestick has murderous intent. And then in that moment, lightning strikes and he dies. So I'll sort of leave the plot there. I'll leave it hanging there. And like moving on to the art, like there's some really, really interesting choices with framing and non-linearity of the plot and like highlighting absurdity and like incidental snippets in the background. So like I'm gonna rattle off a few that just caught my eye. So one, like right at the very start when Professor Plum is reading the letter that's sent to him, and he's got his detective vision mode on, and like there's all these big bold arrows pointing to elements of this letter, and like for example the address that was written to him is space writing, small, angle, the handwriting of a lonely, isolated man. It must be Mr. Body. And then in the corner, you see his hands holding the letter, and then in the corner of the page, folding over the gutters is like a brown splodge and like two rose circles, which you quickly realize are meant to be Professor Plum's nose and his eyeglasses, like resting on his nose, looking at the letter. And so we're basically being given his point of view as we read the letter that he's received. I thought that was a nice touch. We get an overhead diagram of the dinner table that he's at, and the seating arrangement, just represented as like a stark white rectangle and coloured dots for the guests, as though it was the pieces viewed from above. We get like descriptions of different items, so like when Colonel Mustard is talking about, the intent of items, he gives some examples of like a ball wanting to bounce or a die wanting to choose its fate. And so like the descriptions of these items done as foreboding single panel flashes where the motivations of this die are described above like the unfurled 2D representation of a cube on like a really flat, bold, like dull green background. I was really like, I don't know, gives a sense of it gave me a really good sense of foreboding. What else was there? So like Professor Plum being told to find a key to the back entrance of the mansion under a stone, like quote unquote stone, which the stone happens to be like one of the old conical blobby player pieces from the board game, just in that world with no reason or rhyme given. At the moment of Colonel Mustard's death, we get like a cutesy newspaper comic style, like different art style version of like a flash of him standing before Heaven's Gates in a panel after we see him die. And then the rabble happening in the room just continues as normal. It's just like this one really incidental flash of weirdness. A couple more like the floor plan of the mansion taken directly from the board game, and it's retro styling. And then I'm going to end on my favorite line of the comic. So they, for whatever reason, they decide to move Colonel Mustard's body. I don't know why they would do that when they're trying to figure out who killed him, but like they make the wise choice of taking him to the walk-in larder, and they say, "We'll lay Mustard by the ham," and the other person says, "Good idea," which I thought was a nice touch. And like, so the issue like that, I've just described the first like 5 pages basically. I don't want to say too much, but the issue closes off in like a series of escalating vignettes to another like strange climax, culminating in a page which fuses all of these artistic choices of the book together. So like stylistically mismatched perspectives and surreal depictions of the current state of these people in this room going through this situation, and like 50s mystery style compelling portents of doom, like it's ripped off of like a Pulp Fiction novel. And it's also romantic and cool, and I super dig it. So I think it's one of only 3 this time.
Okay.
I'm not sure if it's going to have the same gimmick as the first one, where in the first run it was each different printing had a slightly different ending to mirror the format of the Clue film, which had like, depending on which cinema you went to, they got different reels and like a different ending played out. I don't know if this is going to have the same gimmick, but we'll find out only in a couple of months, I guess. But yeah, that's Clue number 1 of 3 by Dash Shaw.
Yeah, that I used to play Clue a lot with my brother. Cluedo, as we call it in the UK.
Yeah, the better name, Cluedo.
Yeah, and I used to enjoy playing it, so I might have to check that out, because these are all things like the great thing about this is like you and Leon often bring up stuff that isn't on my radar, like that would never have been on my radar. So I'll have to check that out for sure. Leon, have you got anything left to speak about on your list?
I do. Back to Boom, but this time the Boom Box, which you guys informed me is one of Boom's imprints, is a book it's like an autobiographical guide. So this came out late last year in December, and it's called "I Moved to Los Angeles to Work in Animation." And it's written and illustrated, and the cover art is done by Natalie Nurigat. And this is like an 11-part guide, but it's all based on what she went through trying to get into the television animation scene in LA. So like your Nickelodeons, your Cartoon Networks, and so on and so on. So she was a comic book artist in Portland, Oregon. Actually, I'll read out the blurb and then I'll go into it. So when artist Natalie Nurigat left her life in Portland, Oregon, to move to LA and pursue a job in animation, she realized that despite her research, nothing truly prepared her for the wild world that awaited in the studios of Southern California. This autobiographical how-to graphic novel explores the highs and lowest lows of pursuing a dream in animation. And yeah, we follow her journey. I think it started around 2014 is when she did the move, where she was a comic book artist, but she was also doing freelance work and like work for like ad agencies and stuff. There's like solid paying work someone who can do storyboards can get. So she was doing that, but then Portland sort of started to become the sort of hipster. Around 2010, Portland started to become the hipster place it is now, where a lot of different companies moved in, a lot of people went in, some gentrification happened, and then like prices and property prices and the general cost of living there just skyrocketed, making it like unlivable there. And like there's historically been quite a big comic book scene in like Portland, but that led to a lot of people she knew, fellow colleagues and friends, to move to LA and to move into animation because there's a lot of obvious crossover skills, especially when you look at storyboarding. And with being in a situation where things are getting really expensive and she's sort of like out at sea lost, she, after visiting some friends and experiencing that sweet Southern California weather where you can walk out in a t-shirt in November and hang out at the beach, she was like, hell yeah, like I can do this. So it goes through like step by step the process of what she went through, having to like sort of dig up roots and sort of get on I-95 and start a life in the City of Angels in Hollywood, basically. And the way it goes back and forth, the character is addressing her, so there's like a first-person voice where they're laying out what they did and what they would, and then sometimes it's like what they would do now. So they're offering advice, but at the same time, they're giving us insight into what they went through. And at the beginning, they like give it like a disclaimer saying, like this is all couched in like my experience, and like there are different factors that have an effect on this, including different things like certain vectors of privilege that she would have had access to, and just different aspects like that. So it's not like this is the be and all, but it's more sort of like this is my experience, and if I was going to tell myself back then, these are the things that I would have like said up front. And it is it's really good like insight into sort of how brutal these creative industries can be, and how that there's thousands of people like you, where like even if you think, oh, you're really, really good and like you're really, really talented, thousands of people trying to get the same job, even at the base entry level, junior, assistant, intern. There's still so many people going for those things that like at one point early on she mentions like applying for like these interview processes where they will give you like I think it's called like a design something, but they will give you this brief and it's like create jokes about these two characters in frame, and then it's like create a song about homework, and then the other one is like and like draw this thing from this particular angle. And so it's quite a lot of intensive work. And then you go through that process, then you go through multiple interviews, and then you can get to the end and they say no. So it sounded like a brutal process. And she was saying that obviously she's doing like freelance work as well, but she was also basically on the fly, like upping her portfolio. So like if a particular brief says, hey, we want lots of zoo images, she would like rush to the zoo and like make a lot of drawings set in the zoo and so on and so on. It's honest, it's humorous, it's very direct. It's the art style is that sort of cartoony, like animated, exaggerated style where some metaphors are shown on screen, like illustrated, and other things are more sort of like matter of fact. And it's because it's autobiographical. It's done in a way where, like a guide that you may have seen, like a guide comic, where it's like 10 steps to when you're getting commissioned for work or whatever. It's sort of like that, where it is like series of like sort of newspaper comic style, and there's a lot of text because it is autobiographical, so there's a lot of information being given. But that didn't really bother me. I thought the art served its purpose really well, and it made it more enjoyable to get through. Like where instead if this was just by text, it diffuses some of the like lows by having sort of that art style and being a bit more bouncy, because it's not like defeatist or pessimistic. It's just more like optimistic but realistic, and like when you're getting into this, like just be mindful of this. Like you probably haven't even considered this thing, but be mindful of this. And it goes quite deep in each of the different steps and the parts, because it talks specifically about like trying to find an apartment that's like not too far from work, and certain areas are like mega expensive, but and not that good, but because they're near the animation studios, people just live there in the San Fernando Valley, and it goes into detail with that things to a degree where it's very present. Like it's a book and a guide written for now, and like in 5 years' time, some of these companies that are mentioned by name probably may not even exist anymore, or be like bought and folded into whatever. So it's not meant to be this timeless thing. It is like a snippet in time. And it's quite good for that. I don't think everything needs to be timeless, and I think especially the way this is presented as like a guide, sort of how to, but like this is how I did it and this is how I would do it. I think it's very effective in what it's trying to do. And I had fun. I mean, I've got no intention to try like move to LA to work in animation, but there was a lot to garner from it, and I really like the sort of behind the curtain stories or like insights, because I feel like some of these industries aren't. It's not, because like film, I feel like we just have so much media about behind the scenes in film and like what people do to get in a particular situation. And I feel like some of these other industries, these creative industries, these mediums, don't offer us that same transparency. Like especially like animation. Animation works on a different guild. It's not even like the normal guilds for like acting, directing, and so on. So there's like almost like a wall, and like who do you know, and like it's not like semi-insular. So it's nice to sort of get a bit of more of a peek and getting an idea of what that whole scenario is like out there, and how sort of like all these other creative industries, it is brutal, and it can reward persistence, but there is like a high degree of luck, and it's all about sort of creating the opportunities for lightning to strike. But like it is really good, and it there is like meat on there. It isn't like platitudes and I don't know, like positive quotes or anything like that. It is very much like meat and potatoes, and I don't know, I quite enjoyed it as a read. I thought it was quite illustrative. And I'd recommend diving in, giving it a read. It's a quick and easy read. I mean, it's like near 100 pages, but it flies by pretty quickly.
I'm just looking at some of the pages now. I've just got some of the pages up and I'm just having a quick look. And I like the I do like the abstract cartoon style. I think it works really well for the story it's telling, basically, from the pages I've seen. And I like these muted pastel colours, these like muted colours that they use, like the pastel colours and things. I think that's great.
It really is like easy on the eye.
Yeah, it looks like it's just there to be easy to take, like easy to take in, easy to take on board, and
Because you know how like the Scott McCloud books basically use comics to teach you about comics. This is sort of similar in that vein. It's of that ilk. Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, I like this kind of slice of life thing at the best of times. So when it's autobiographical, it's a whole other new level to it. This sounds really good.
I do like it. And I'm going to close this out, I think, with the last one on my list. So the last one I had to talk about was the one that I mentioned at the very start, which was Detective Comics 1006. And the reason I wanted to bring this up is because it's the beginning of a new arc, and it just really resonated with me. And it was like, you know, like when you really need a cheeseburger, like nothing else will do.
Like all the time, man. All the time.
Yeah. But nothing else will do. You just have to have the cheeseburger, and you know, like, where your favourite cheeseburger comes from and things, and you can always go back to your favourite cheeseburger, and it'll always taste great because it's always from the same place wherever you go for your cheeseburger, right? So what I really needed was a cheeseburger this week, and my cheeseburger was Detective Comics 1006. It's the beginning of a new arc, and it's Batman and the Spectre working together, which is really cool. I always enjoy when these two cross paths and Batman stories get a little bit supernatural. I like that. And this was written, the way this was written and the way it unfolded, it gave me like real feelings of nostalgia. It was like picking up a classic Batman arc or classic issues of Detective Comics. It just had that feel about it, and that was what I wanted. I was reading it and I was enjoying it for that. I was like, yeah, this is like reading old Batman comics again, and I'm really enjoying this. And I'll just give you the blurb off the preview site. So this is a brand new arc, by the way. You don't need to know anything to read this. It's just a Batman story. And that's what's cool about Detective Comics, that every so many issues it's a new arc, so you can dip in and dip out. You don't have to buy them all. So Detective Jim Corrigan has been shot on the streets of Gotham City, and the Spectre must reach out to Batman to help him find the secret assassin. So Jim Corrigan was the host for the Spectre, and the Spectre is like this, for want of a better word, spectral force that lives inside Detective Jim Corrigan. He's like the host for the Spectre. He's like an avenging spirit kind of thing, is what the Spectre is. Spirit of vengeance. And most times he turns up, it's like a kind of a detective story, and he's out to catch and avenge someone's murder or something like that. And he's a bit of an anti-hero in that respect, because he does no qualms about doling out justice his way and being judge, jury, and executioner. Now, yeah, this is just like, it just screamed classic Batman and classic Detective Comic story, and I think that's probably because Kyle Hotz is the artist there. And I don't know if you've heard that name before, Leon, have you?
I can't picture it. I don't know if I've come across their works before, but I can't remember their name.
So Kyle Hotz has done a lot of work in comics over the years, and he worked on the Spider-Man Clone Saga. So
that's why I lost his name when I deleted that whole portion of my childhood.
Yeah, so that's where you should probably know him from. Spider-Man Clone Saga. He did X-Men, Cyclops, and Phoenix as well. Some of that was him. He's done some. He's done all sorts. The Immortal Hulk. Yeah, he's been everywhere. So what? Yeah, I mean, it's just the feel of his artwork and the style is just classic. That kind of era where I got into comics, and some of the old Batman comics that I really enjoy have that kind of feeling about them, and the era that his artwork represents for me and everything else. And I guess that's where the nostalgia comes from. And there's lots of curly cape action in this book, as you can probably guess from the from the style of the artwork I'm talking about and everything else. You know where you've got like the cape and it kind of curls, and they've got like the. Do you know what I mean when I say curly cape action, Leon?
I think I do. Is that
cloaks
like...
and capes where they're kind of like split and they kind of curl a little bit at the bottom and stuff? And
but at the end,
yeah,
and they feel like endless.
Yes. There's a lot of that, and it's really well done, like billowing and there's some great panels in here, and it's just fantastic for that. And there's lots of smoke and mist, and the way that is drawn and the detail is just so fitting for a character like the Spectre. And there's just some great panels. One in particular I liked was where Passage of Time, it displays Passage of Time, and it displays the Spectre reducing to Batman's size to be face to face with him. It's done vertically down the side of the page, and it's all done in one fluid panel without borders, or without splitting it into different panels. You could have split it into 3 panels, but I mean, you could look at it and you could split it into 3 panels. There would be divides, but you wouldn't need to, because the way it's done, and it's so fluid and gorgeous with the artwork, like mist and green cloak become one, and it's just billowing in this vertical panel, and he just reduces size in 3 stages, and it's just so cool. Also throughout this book, we've got an old school looking Batman with his navy cowl and his yellow utility belt, which is another nice touch. And I think this was all, I think this is a calculated stab at, like doing some old school Batman by the team that worked on it. And I think they've managed to hit the nail on the head. And yeah, and it just works perfectly. And it is for me. Yeah, it feels like old school Batman when I'm flicking through it and when I'm looking at the pages. And it just has that for me, which I really like. I'll just read out the creative team on here now. So this is Batman Detective Comics 1006, and we have Peter J. Tomasi as the story and words, Kyle Hotz is the artist, David Barron on colours, Rob Lee doing letters, and yeah, it just hit the spot like a cheeseburger, And that's the end of my comics list. And I would say that wraps us up, but I've got a question for you. And this was the question that I asked Ben when I did the interview last week. You can check out the interview for their answer. I'm not going to spoil it. But I want to hear... I kind of got the idea of this over this week. I was thinking, I want to hear what you two would say, what your take is on this question, like how you guys would play that, because I think it's quite a fun question. I like it. So you have a house share, you have 3 rooms to fill, so there's you and 3 other people. You have to choose 3 villains and tell us why you would choose those 3 villains to fill those rooms, and they can be from comics, TV, or games. And I will go first to give you a kind of an idea of the kind of answers I'm looking for. So I would say that I would have Bebop or Rocksteady to fill 1 room. And the pros being they would have like really cool, like really like hardcore parties and stuff, and it'd be fun. The cons would be there'd be no money and they'd trash the place. but I mean, you know, like the epic punk rock rages that those guys would throw, right? I mean, I'd probably have. I mean, in my answer last week, I said that I would have Doctor Doom, and that is because Doctor Doom, you know, he's kind of sciencey. He'd be able to get me free Wi-Fi and stuff and everything else. Ben rightly pointed out that Doctor Doom would never do the dishes, and I'm inclined to agree there.
But Doctor Doom's got people to do his dishes. I mean,
well, yeah. I mean, look, yeah. I mean, like, the other one that I thought would make a cool housemate would be Loki from the Thor comics. Because I feel like he would... He'd
be playing tricks on you all the time, man.
Yeah, but I feel like it would make it fun.
Oh, banter.
Yeah, banter, yeah, exactly.
We're not in uni anymore. I don't want banter from my flatmates.
So, Ray's definitely keeping all 3 rooms empty then?
Yeah, if I had the choice, but like I live in London, so that's definitely not a choice that I can make.
Yeah, imagine you need people to make rent, okay?
Yeah.
So who do you choose?
Me? Okay, fine. So I was thinking about this. I didn't consider games or movies and stuff. I just thought, keep it simple, look at comics. So I was thinking... So number 1, Wilson Fisk.
Yeah.
Which, if he agreed, it would mean that I would have, like, really huge rooms, which is what I want. So, like, in this scenario, that informs the other. So, like, massive rooms. I'm sure he would bring, like, a really cool, comfy sofa with him. And I get the impression he's a really good cook. And, like, he likes good food. So I would like to have, like, Fisk around. Apart from, like, he's a villain. So, like, we're ignoring all the temper tantrums and, like, whatever. I'm going to stay out of his way. Hopefully keep him sweet and, like, make use of all the cool stuff that he brings with him.
Well, if you look at the Daredevil TV series, he makes a good omelette.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
That's the clip that I saw. So I mean, it'd be omelette for days with Wilson Fisk.
Yeah.
Poison Ivy, because I've recently got into buying and caring for some plants. And I think she'd be a really good influence. It would mean that my plants would probably not die. They'd thrive, and it would really keep me on my toes about not fucking it up. And
oh my god, yeah, you'd be shit scared to kill those plants.
Exactly, and that's what I need, because I keep killing my plants, so I need like good influence around.
You need the incentive of instant death.
Exactly,
because she'd have no qualms about snapping your neck if you killed those plants. And
if I left, I could also just leave it to her and like have her populate my house with like really nice plants, lush plants. Hopefully not like poisonous ones or, you know, man-killing plants, but that's the risk you take when letting a villain into your house. And then thirdly, right now, if it was just a short-term lease, like just for the next couple of months, I would say Mr. Freeze, because it's boiling right now in England.
Yeah, but like he'd just like jack up the aircon to max and your bills would be enormous.
I mean, yeah, but he could bring his own. That would be one of the stipulations of his rent, is that he brings his personal air conditioning unit and shares it with the rest of us.
He wouldn't do
like,
that.
He got piggyback off of like my non-existent air conditioner. The only reason he's there is to keep things cool.
Leon, where are we with you on this?
Okay, first I would have Selena Kyle, Catwoman.
Yep.
Like villain Catwoman. None of this matrimony, half good guy stuff. Like I want the thief, and I don't have to worry about like my stuff being stolen because her taste is more expensive. But I think Selena would be fun. Like a lot of the depictions of Selena, like the comics and movies and cartoons, she's cool, and I think that she would push you to do more exciting stuff. It'd be scary because she'd be like, "Oh, let's rob this bank." I'm like, Selena, I don't know how to do that. It'll be fine. Don't worry. I'll do all the heavy lifting. You just come along. It'll be fun. It'll be jokes, and I'll be like,
she's cool with pets as well.
Yeah, well, that's something like she'd be finding pets. I mean, I wouldn't want 100 cats in the place.
Well, you invite Selena over, you're gonna have 100 cats.
I mean, they can stay in her room. They can stay in her room, but like I like cats, so I don't mind that. But as long as she is in charge of like removing all the hair, because like I don't want the sofa just to be covered in cat hair. But I like cats, so I'm down with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just think like I don't know. She would show you a lot of the city that you just have no idea about because you know all these different avenues and all these gaps in security, blind spots with CCTV, and you just find really cool spaces. You'd be like sitting on a bridge somewhere, like in a way that you
to the rooftops.
Yeah, like she was like, "Oh, I know the best. Do you want to see like the best view of the city, whichever city we're living in? Preferably, I hope it's not Gotham, but whichever city we're in. She's like, I'll show you the 10 best views of the city." It's like, what the hell? Like, it'd be ace. So I think she'd be my first spot, and she'd never be behind a ramp ever.
Yeah, but if you're hanging, what about if you're hanging out with her and her jealous leather-clad boyfriend turns up and punches you in the face because you're hanging out with Selena?
They're not dating at this stage. But
even if you're with Selena and you're robbing banks with Selena, Batman's going to punch you in the face.
Yeah, but like I said, we're not specifically in Gotham, and he's selfish and works in his own city, so we'd be good. Be good. It's London, but Selena Kyle in London.
Unless he needs Selena for something and he has to come to London to fetch her and ends up punching you in the face as a byproduct.
This is before they've got their thing going on. This is when they're just flirting on rooftops and stuff. She gets away. I think second, I would have Magneto.
Because you'd always be able to find the cutlery.
Well, yeah, minor stuff like that. I mean, it'd be super useful to have someone who's so powerful with magnetism and stuff like that. The only thing in this scenario, having Magneto there, is that I would want to be part mutant in some way. Because I think that changes our relationship quite a lot. If I'm a dirty human, then I don't know how it's going to go so well, but I think even if I'm a human, I could appeal to his causes because I'm also part of a minority. So I think it'd be really interesting to hang out with him because he would just have so many ideas and thoughts and stuff like that. And I'm not saying maybe I could stop him from like trying to genocide humanity, but I mean maybe humanity needs to be genocide, but like
I considered Magneto for the same reasons because like, he'd be cool to talk to, but I don't think I give as much credit to him as you do with like not killing me off just for being a minority. Like what I was thinking is, what would you lie about in your advertisement, like in the newspaper or on whatever, like whatever Gumtree,
Craigslist,
Craigslist, Gumtree, whatever you're doing. What would you claim? What could you like? Blur the edges of claiming that your mutant power is without actually having one.
Oh, well, like lie about having a power?
Yeah, that you could reasonably like get away with without him questioning it too much.
Man, that's a nervous question.
some mutant powers, when you look at what some mutant powers are in the comic books and stuff, they're fairly like inert. So you could just lie about having a mutant power, and it could just be a talent, and you could just
I don't want to lie to Magneto. This is a relationship based on honesty, and I'm here to like listen to him and for him to like open up my third eye and turn on my own people, and I'm cool with that.
Have you tried renting a room in London? You're going to have to lie at some point.
No, but like the option is not. The option is I've got the 3 empty rooms and he's coming to me. So
who's
if I'm lying about anything, it's how good the plumbing is. I'm not lying to him about like this deep stuff. I want to talk about marginalization and get into the weeds and stuff. Because I mean, on the way to screwing over humanity, there are other steps you can do to sort of fix stuff for mutants. So yeah, I can help him out of that stuff. And at the end, when he's like, "I'm sorry, Leon, but you knew what the last step was going to be," I'll be like, "Yep, fair enough, man. Fair enough." Had to be this way. We had some good times.
And right then, a red concussive blast comes through the window and saves your life. Yeah,
I think he'd like my like skills with him on MVC too. He'd be appreciative that I play as him quite a lot. He'd probably think it was like the wrestler when the lead character's playing like the SNES version of his game. He'd probably be like, "Oh, this is a bit silly and rudimentary." But if it's the glory years time, be like, "Yeah, maybe people are ready. Maybe people have gotten woke."
But like, the days you come home from work and Wolverine's been round and trashed your apartment because Magneto's there.
Like this is a closed door type thing. Like these people need to tell me when they've got people coming over, because I can't have an X-Men battle in the apartment. Like, I want to get my deposit back. Like,
we ain't getting your deposit back because you've got Selina's 100 cats weeing everywhere, you know.
No, come on. She's trained them. She's Catwoman. They're using the toilet.
So naive.
They're using the toilet. You guys, I'm sorry, guys. You guys don't read enough comics. You guys are closed-minded.
You've got whole comics where Selina Kyle has got cats that are trained specifically to use the toilet. It's 25 pages of cats flushing the chain. Is that what you're trying to tell me?
No, that's a side comic where we're a couple months behind on the schedule. We need to get something out.
That's 4 cats a page, man.
Yeah. So who's your third one, Leon?
So the third one is tough because when you get to this stage, you want them to sort of complement the others. And it becomes a thing of like, oh, do I just go put a wild card in there? Do I just do something silly and put a wild card in there who might like break this like really tense and on like a wire's edge social structure we've got going on? Or do I like bring in someone who's a bit more like to business and will get stuff done? And I think I am going to add a wild card. But I don't think this person would be as much of a wild card because I think they would get on with Magneto, except I wouldn't want them to have a fight because it would be messy. But I'm going to say Ultron.
Ooh.
Because again, on this bent of humanity, I'm always on the side of the robots in these things. I watch Westworld and I'm with the hosts 100%. And I think like it would be cool to have like an AI there who is like in the movie, it just took him 5 minutes on the internet to decide, whoa, these people got to go. So like, yeah, I understand that, Ultron. That stuff's real. And I think it'd be fun to have, like, especially like in this example, if he is like the James Spader sounding Ultron from Age of Ultron, that would be cool. I think it'd be funny just to, Dexter's Lab, and you had
Mandark.
No, was it based off Dexter? The Justice Friends.
Oh yes, yeah.
Yes, yeah. And I love the idea of that the three of them all sat on a couch together, and I just love the idea of coming home and I've got like Ultron, Selina Kyle, and Magneto just chilling on the sofa on the L sofa, just chilling out, arguing over what to watch on TV.
That's actually where I got the idea for this question from. But yeah,
I think that's a good squad. I think they complement each other in cool ways. I'm not sure how Ultron would get on with all the cats, but I think he'd be cool. I think he'd be cool, and just like the benefits, like of having these people. I mean, Magneto is a badass. like no one can mess with me ever having these three people, and then like. There'll be nights where like Magneto's bored and he's like, "Oh, you guys, is Selina dragging you out again to rob a bank?" I'm like, "Yeah." It's like, "Yeah, let me come along. I could probably help out." And I'm like, "Oh, that's cool." Bend the gates a bit and then bend them back into shape. No one will know. Mess up the cameras with your electromagnesis.
Don't even need to break into the bank. He could just pull the safe out through the wall.
Oh, but that Selina wouldn't like that.
Yeah,
like she likes to be she
likes
to leave it intact.
Yeah.
Yes, like slip in, get what you need, slip out.
Yeah,
and like see that your thing from Magneto's perspective is like, yeah, just pull the jewels out of the window. It's cool. Selina's like, no, not that way. That's not how we do it. This is why I don't invite you. So yeah, I think it would be good.
Yeah. See, like I've been having a think, and I've been thinking like maybe Harvey Dent for his interior design skills.
Yeah, but then you've got two people in the place of one, so you've got 4 roommates.
Plus, half your shit wouldn't match the other half.
Yeah, well, that's in his room. He could do whatever he wants in his room, but
yeah.
I think that would cause issues because you'd have the thing of like, who used the last of the toilet paper? And it was like, it was Two-Face who did it, but Harvey's going to be blaming you guys. And it's like, no, this is your problem. I guess give him the ensuite, but
it'd be good for solving disputes. Like, it just flip a coin. You know, like, can't decide what to watch on Netflix. Heads, tails. Can't decide whose turn it is to go out and buy, like, toiletries. Heads, tails. Can't decide.
Yeah,
you know.
At least you wouldn't have that indecisive BS. Where it's
can't decide who's toiletries. I mean,
it.
cleaning products, but yeah, heads, tails.
See, part of me earlier on was thinking of like the Riddler, but I thought like that's a hassle, man.
That would be annoying.
Oh no, because he's so aloof.
Would be so annoying.
Yeah, he's so up himself and so aloof.
Like, sometimes you just want a straight answer. It's like, hey, you're going to have the rent by the 24th. And like, he'd put you around the house, he'd make you go around the whole city, like, geotagging and, like, finding all this BS. And then you get back, like, you played, like, Pokemon Go or Ingress or something. And you'd be like, yeah, it's going to be a day late. Like, it'd be so frustrating.
Yeah, no. Couldn't have him as a housemate. I think next time we're going to have to do this with heroes. We should try it with heroes as well. See what kind of answers we get. But that was I think we're at the end of the episode now, so we should go through the pool list and then I will close us out. So, I have a pool list for the 3rd of July. I'll open. So the 3rd of July, when this podcast is available, Crowded's back on the shelves with Crowded number 7. A comic that me and Leon have discussed previously on the podcast in things we were looking forward to was No One Left to Fight. And that is out. And No One Left to Fight, I'll just read you a quick blurb for that. So this is on Dark Horse, and they've saved the planet countless times, but what happens after the final battle has been won? Creators Aubrey Stitterson, a comic book story of professional wrestling in G.I. Joe, and Fico Ossio, Spider-Man Revolution, take inspiration from the legendary Dragon Ball to tell a story of regret, resentment, and growing older. One that asks, what does a fighter do when there's no one left to fight? And we've already talked about this before, me and Leon, with the character designs and things. Very, very DBZ-ish, Street Fighter-ish. A lot of like post-apocalyptic influence going on as well, with some of the way that the people look and stuff. And I'm pretty stoked for that. It looks kind of cool. It looks kind of fun. So I want to give that a look and see what that comes out like. We've also got Test number 1, which we talked about 2 episodes ago. We reviewed it. It's out. Go and take a look. We've got Lois Lane number 1. So for Lois Lane number 1, on the road and out of Metropolis, and carrying a secret that could disrupt Superman's life, Lois Lane embarks on a harrowing journey to uncover a threat to her husband and a plot that reaches the highest levels of international power brokers and world leaders. Critically acclaimed and best-selling author Greg Rucka and master storyteller Mike Perkins team up for a tale of conspiracy, intrigue and murder that pushes even Lois to her limits. So how do you feel about that? A Lois Lane detective tale. I think that sounds pretty cool. What do you reckon, Leon, Ray?
Yeah, it definitely is an idea that could have legs. I mean, her job is her being a detective, and I don't think we get enough of that. So it'd be cool.
Yeah.
If they explored that like effectively.
A Lois solo outing. And we also have. To finish off the 3rd of the 7th, we've got Fantastic Four, The Prodigal Son, which I picked out because it's got it's the first of 3 interconnected special issues featuring the Fantastic Four, the Silver Surfer, and the Guardians of the Galaxy. Introducing Prodigal, a strange alien being who has crash-landed in the Savage Land. When he becomes worshipped by a race of swamp-belling barbarians, Kazar and Shana call upon the Fantastic Four to aid them in stopping the barbarians' plans to conquer the entirety of their world. Join Prodigal on his lengthy journey to try to return home to settle old scores. And that just sounds interesting because it's the Fantastic Four and the Silver Surfer in the same book. Ray, do you have anything for us for the 3rd of July?
I haven't properly looked, but the only one that comes to mind is we talked about our preview for Test number 1, a Vault book. That'll be coming out on July the 3rd.
Yes. So, moving on to 10th of July, we've got Detective Comics 1007, which is the continuation of the arc that started in 1006 that I have just talked about in this particular episode. We've got Batman Universe number 1, which is So this is now available to comic shops for the first time. So available to comic shops for the first time following the theft of a priceless Fabergé egg. The Riddler leads the Dark Knight on a wild hunt after its true owner, Ginny Hex, descendant of Jonah Hex, guest starring Deathstroke, Green Arrow, and dozens of Riddler lookalikes in stories by Brian Michael Bendis with art by Nick Derrington, originally published in Batman Giant 3 and 4. So, I think this is the stories that were published. You know, like Walmart had the Walmart exclusive books. Walmart exclusive DC comics that you could only get in Walmart. And I think they're now available in comic shops, and that's what this is. So I'm quite looking forward to getting to read those, because they were never, I don't think they were ever sold in the UK. Walmart in UK would have been Asda, wouldn't it? So
that's weird. It's like video games.
Yeah, it's strange. But they're in comic shops now under the moniker Batman Universe. So I'm going to be checking that out.
The whole comic, not just the cover, exclusive to a store, right?
Yeah. So this was...
Damn.
I think these were like... they were a line of comics that were exclusive to Walmart.
That's wild.
I'm just going to fact check myself while I'm talking to you now. So, yeah, they were doing these 100-page giant comics line for Walmart, and they've ended the exclusivity, which means they're bringing them to comic shops now. I'm not sure what the idea was behind the actual thing in the first place, like why they chose to sell stories in Walmart and nowhere else, but hey-ho. DC does as DC wants. We've also got Wolverine vs. Blade #1, which I picked up just because it says Wolverine vs. Blade #1 on the cover. And the cover is Wolverine in his... You know, the black and grey Wolverine with the red eyes? You may know it as a alternate skin on Marvel vs. Capcom. So Wolverine vs. Blade #1. Now, the blurb literally just says... So, like, the blurb is literally just 2 of the deadliest hunters ever to have stalked the night face off. Wolverine vs. Blade. Enough said. That's all you get. But the picture is... the cover is Wolverine and Blade locked in combat. I can't help but feel like Wolverine's going to win this one. I don't think Blade... I don't think Blade stands a chance against Wolverine. I mean, I might be wrong, but that's just me. You've got giant-sized ecstatics, which is the return of the ecstatics. Again, something that I'm looking forward to. Yeah, so giant-sized ecstatics, and that is because it's Mike Allred, obviously. They're back, more alive than ever for this special one-shot, but what new threat is so grave that only the most famous mutant celebrities can fight it? And who is the new You Go Girl? Only the original Ecstatics creative team, Peter Milligan, Michael Allred and Laura Allred, know for sure. So it's the Allreds, which is why I picked it up. And the cover looks gorgeous, and it's the Ecstatics, which is this team of celebrity mutants. Yeah, it's all good fun as a comic book, and I'm really, really looking forward to this. So, giant size Ecstatics. We also have Reaver #1, which is a new #1 that I came across now. This is in Image Comics. Ecstatics is Marvel, by the way. The continent of Madras once promised a new start for settlers, but 200 years after its discovery, the war rages on. Deep within this savage and untamed land, a darkness builds that must be stopped at all costs. To do so, the Imperials assemble 6 of those most despicable prisoners. A turncoat, a skin-eater, a sorcerer and his bodyguard, a serial killer and the devil's son. The only one who can stop the end of the new world. They are the Hell's Half Dozen. So it's kind of like a Dirty Dozen / Suicide Squad / that kind of... I get that kind of vibe off it. It just struck me as kind of cool. And that's on Image Comics. That's another #1 to look out for. Got another one called Unearth. Unearth #1. This, again, is another one on Image Comics. And the blurb for this just sounded interesting. So, when a flesh-warping disease ravages a remote village in Mexico, a scientific task force travels to the inhospitable area to investigate the contamination. Tracing the source of the disease to a nearby cave system, the team discovers a bizarre, hostile ecosystem and a supernatural revelation from which they may never escape. This new subterranean nightmare is brought to you by writers Cullen Bunn and Kyle Strahm, and rising star artist Baldmar Rivas. So Cullen Bunn is what drew me to this, and this actually sounds more exciting than Rivas. I'm actually into this. Next one on the list, and final one on the list, is something another new number one that I looked across, called Ghosted in LA. In Los Angeles, finding an apartment is killer unless you live with the dead. Rycroft Manor may be old, it may be abandoned, it may even be haunted, but Daphne Walters doesn't care about any of that. Has a pool and it's rent-free. New to LA, coming off of a bad breakup and having a pretty terrible week, Daphne might need to crash on this haunted couch for a while. But having undead roommates might be more than she bargained for. Will the dead be able to help Daphne find the life she's been missing in the big city? From GLAAD Award-nominated Sina Grace of Iceman, and illustrator Siobhan Keenan, Clueless, Gem and Holograms. Now, Sina Grace was Jughead's timepiece was Sina Grace. It comes a story about learning how to make friends, find love, and live to the fullest with a little help from some friends whose lives didn't end at death. So, living in a haunted house with dead roommates. That sounds kind of fun. So that brings us to the end of the pull list, and that is the end of Ace Comicals number 66. So you can find us at www.acecomicals.com, where you will find links to our Twitter, where we are called Ace Comicals. You will find us on Facebook under Ace Comicals. We are on Instagram under Ace Comicals. You can find us to listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Castro, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn. We're everywhere. You can get in touch at acecomicals@gmail.com, or you can DM us on Twitter, or at us, just send us a message, whatever. You can find me on Twitter under @Batto, that's BATTOU. Ray, where can we find you?
On Twitter at Monkeh, so that's MOONKEH.
And Leon, where can we find you?
You can also find me on Twitter at Leon Everett, and also was recently on an episode of Dynamite and a Brain, where we were talking about Fury Curry Progressive, which is the years late continuation of the Fury Curry storyline. I'd recommend going and checking it out. We have quite a fun and interesting discussion on the show.
And that wraps us up. So that has been Ace Comicals episode number 66. Ace Comicals, over and out.